Today we're making Australian meat pie. We're going to use 1 cup of flour, 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to mix those together until we have a fine crumb type consistency. The way that we're going to do that is use 2 knives and cut across like this to break the butter up into little pieces. While we're doing this, we can put our 1/3 cup of ice cold water into the freezer to get even colder. Once it's in a crumbly texture, we're going to add 1/3 of a cup of water and mix it together with our hands. After your dough comes together, you're going to saran wrap it and put it in the fridge for 20 minutes. While the dough is in the fridge chilling, we're going to start the filling. So we're going to start by sauteing 1/4 of an onion in a pan. You can put in a little bit of oil if you'd like. If you have a non-stick pan, you should be okay. I'm going to do this over medium heat. Now that the onions are cooked through and they're translucent, we're going to remove them from the heat in the pan and put them in a separate dish. And we're going to set them aside. Then we're going to add the 1/4 pound of ground beef to the frying pan. That up with our spatula and cook it until it's brown. Okay, our beef is browned. Now we're going to add the onions back into the pan, along with 1/2 cup of water, a 1/4 teaspoon of beef broth, 3 mushrooms sliced, a pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper, and a pinch of nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, a tablespoon of ketchup, and 1/2 teaspoon of Vegemite or Marmite. Now we're going to combine this and let it come to a simmer, which are small bubbles, and we'll cook it for 15 minutes. I just wanted to show you a simmer. These small bubbles over here, that's a simmer. So leave it at that temperature for 15 minutes. While the filling is cooking, I'm going to make my cornstarch. It's called a slurry, and that's where you take the cornstarch and you mix it with water. So you would have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and 1.5 tablespoons of water. And you mix those together and stir them in. And this is what's used to thicken sauces, things like gravy. So I'm mixing them together and then I'm trying to get the clumps out. And this is what I'm going to add to my meat mixture. The 15 minutes has passed. So now I'm going to add my slurry or my cornstarch and water mixture. And I'm going to do it slowly, and I'm going to stir the whole time. And this will be what your final filling looks like. So take it off the heat and set it aside, and we'll roll out the dough. I pulled the dough out of the fridge. Now I'm going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the counter, and spread it around. Place the dough on the floured surface, and knead the dough a few times for it to come together. So press away with the heel of my hand, fold it over, turn, press away with the heel of my hand. I'm just going to do this a few times until it's a little smoother. And I'm going to roll out the dough. So I'm going to put the rolling pin in the middle of the dough, push away from myself, rolling pin in the middle of the dough, push towards myself, and then keep turning the dough and repeating that process. All right, I've rolled the dough out till it's about 1/8 of an inch thick. And now I'm going to take my little meat trays or meat pie trays and place them upside down on the dough. I doubled my dough, so I'm gonna cut out 4 circles. For the tops of the pies, I'm gonna cut the exact shape of this pie plate. For the bottoms, I'm gonna cut a little bit bigger. I have my 2 tops and my 2 bottoms. I'm gonna take a pie plate and place one of the bottoms over top of the pie plate, and then just tuck it in. You can see why I wanted it a bit bigger. I could have probably even gone bigger than I did. Now I'm going to take the filling and I'm going to split it between those 2 pies evenly just by spooning it in. The meat pies are filled and they're about even with the rim. They could also be just slightly below, that would be okay. And I'm going to wet the rim of the pastry. I'm just going to dip my fingers in water and run along the edge of the pastry. That's going to help the lid stick to the bottom. Now I'm going to take the top and I'm going to put it on the pie, and I'm going to pinch along the edges to seal the pie. You could also do this with a fork. With a sharp knife, I'm going to create 2 slits in the center of the lid. So I pulled the meat pie out after 45 minutes. It's golden brown on top, and then let it sit for 15 minutes. Now it's ready to eat. Enjoy.